Holy shit. What a start to the week. Mostly good trades on my part, and I'm very proud of the executions I had on the long side, but you know, definitely not proud of the flip on the short side where I threw away $1,000. So let's go over the AYRO trade first. I was actually bullish on the stock after, yeah, I did scalp a short trade for like what, 20 cents, but over here this is where I started loaning. This is where I recognized that holding this 470s area, and at the time the stock was only up 50%, which for a low floater like this, that's nothing. So that's why I was leaning more bullish on the stock, and there's definitely details in the filings and everything like that that made us feel like they had an incentive to keep on pushing the stock up, and especially after the stock held a higher low here, 480s, after trapping a lot of shorts pre-market and at the open. When they started squeezing and pushing and breaking above the $5 level, that's where I started, you know, accumulating the long side. So I had, you know, pretty decent entry here, entered here and added, and I'm always, you know, selling on the pushes, because even though we had a long thesis, that doesn't mean it's gonna go straight up to $8, right? Like over here, the stock, you know, after pushing towards 590s, I was pretty convinced that they were gonna do a $6 test. When I didn't get that, I have to stop out and only re-enter later on. You can't be too biased on either side, long or short, which ironically is the kind of the mistake I made later on. And let me show you. So this is where I started accumulating even more long, and I was all out around this 630s area, and my final sell on the long side was here, and this is where I started to get cute and flip short. And given that, you know, I have this rule that if I'm flipping short or flipping bias on a stock, one of the trades has to be a scalp. That's just my personal rule. It makes sense for the way I trade. So if I was, you know, more convinced on the long side early on, the short should have been a scalp, right? And then it should have been a trade where I cut my losses pretty quickly if I was wrong. I had pretty good entry here on this blow off candle, 670s, and added here. But this is where I was looking for this kind of move to cover. And when we didn't get that, I need to cover, but I didn't. You know, you could say, you know, I think maybe I was feeling a little bit too confident that I nailed the long side and had a pretty decent gain on this, and had another trade, LMND, the IPO stock, in which I made a pretty decent profit on the long side as well. And I think I definitely got a little bit too, you know, a little bit too cocky. I will admit to that. It's Monday, you know, it's after a long weekend. I was feeling good, and that's where I made a mistake. And you can see I started adding, scaling in, and the silver lining is that, you know, I still kept my rule of if I'm scaling in with, you know, quarter sizes or even 1/5, 1/8. So I was never down with full size. So that's, you know, the silver lining of this, but still, I still threw away a grand on this short side. So not a good trade. And this is where I finally stopped out, and I did re-enter the short around here, 790s and $8. That gave me a very nice average, and this time I finally covered all my short position. I did try to re-short this 740s and then 730s, and I was looking for this move and this kind of move potentially, but you know, when we didn't get that, I stopped out and followed my rule on the second, actually the third short trade. So this is a scratch. I made some profit on this, but overall the short side I was still down a grand. So not happy with the way I gave back some of my profit. So overall on this trade, I made money on the long side and lost on the short side, and that's it. You know, it's a lesson I needed to learn. LMND. So this is actually the trade of the day for me, and it's a $90 stock now. When I started loaning this, it was a $78 stock. This is a recent IPO, Lemonade. You can see we only had prior day history on Thursday, and today is the first day of trades after the long weekend. So the long thesis is that after we prove that we can break above the daily and hold above the $71 mark over here, here, then that's why I wanted to buy the dips, right? I'm not gonna buy the breakout because this stock at one point had a 50 cents to $1 spread. So this is definitely a stock you want to size in slowly, and on the dips like I did here, buying the dip here, never catching the perfect bottom, but that's totally fine because I'm, as I said, I'm scaling in, right? And after we reclaimed VWAP, that's why I started adding even bigger, sold some just to take some profit. And you know, I was looking to add even bigger, and I didn't see this kind of move from, you know, 82 all the way to 95 within like 3 minutes. So I definitely didn't see that coming, and I didn't get a chance to add to full size. So I had about half size on this stock, but I did of course want to sell into the push. Come on, like 12 points move, that's ridiculous. So so I sold into this, but I still kept a small size because I think, you know, this is just the first move. I was thinking we're gonna accumulate a little bit longer and make the test towards $100. We didn't get that, but I still have to stuck with my plan, right? The same plan I had early on is to buy the dips, and I started buying here, re-entering, and this is why I slowly built a full size position, right? I built a size here, slowly, right? So if your full size is 1,000 shares, you want to scale in with 250, 250, 250, and same thing with 100 shares, you want to build in with 25, 25, 25, 25. That's the definition of scaling in. And even when I'm scaling in, I want to make sure if I do get a breakout move, I want to sell some into it. You can always add back your scale position. Started building my position on the dip. So after all the scaling, I had about a $88 average, which is nice, but I was looking for that big move to retest 97 and then go into 100. We didn't get that. So after we did start hovering for a while and we're just kind of consolidating, but with a lot lower volume, this is where I decided that, you know, I see this test, I'm not in a hurry to sell, but if we fail this test, I'm gonna get out. So which is what we got, you know, like we pushed to 96, but we didn't have enough volume and juice to break out to 97. When this failed, and that's where I scaled out, and you know, I'm out. So which ended up being a pretty nice sell, considering the stock later tanked to 85. If I didn't sell, if I was too convinced of my long thesis, I would be down pretty big. So, you know, whether you are on the right side of the trade or on the wrong side, you have to trade according to your plan. Even if I didn't get the thesis I had wanted, this just ended up being a smaller win, which on a stock like this, when it moved $12, $13, that's still a really decent profit. But unfortunately, this trade is the reason I got a little bit too cocky on AYRO. So, you know, definitely, you know, some pretty decent lessons on today. And the final trade, which is also a loss, is NYO. But, you know, when the way I trade is I add into my winners, and when the thesis is not proven, I don't add. So I was wrong on a starter size, which I'm perfectly okay with. Long the dip, around 1160s. I was looking for a reclaim of 1180s and $12. We didn't get that, so I was stopped out. Lost about 10 cents on this trade on starter size. So that was perfectly fine with me. So ending the day pretty nicely with ANVS and a couple of the stocks such as Tesla and NVAX and AYRO. So let's talk about ANVS. ANVS, I actually missed the shorts early on. The stock is on SSR, and that's why I was thinking they're gonna squeeze it a lot higher to 10s before the drop at the open. So I wanted this move, but I thought we were gonna get this kind of squeeze at the open for me to short into, because if a stock is on SSR, you have to short on the uptick. You cannot slam on the bid. So you have to essentially short the breakouts. So I missed my entry, and this entire move would have been a very nice $1 and over $1 share drop. I missed everything, and when I enter on these kind of bounces that I had wanted, it's with a lot smaller size and give me a lot of room to add, because with these small cap low floats, this kind of shenanigan can always happen. This is why I started scaling in shorts over here and added some more here, but I took a very nice stop out, which I'm very proud about, by the way. Again, it's a low float stock on SSR. After they have trapped all the shorts down here, including myself, they're probably just doing one of those low float manipulations to squeeze everyone out. And very interestingly, this is kind of very similar move to what we saw on AYRO yesterday. So it's kind of almost like they took the exact same playbook. But this time around, I did stop out, right? According to my plan on starter size. So it's only with the fact that I did stop out that I can really quickly flip back short. I started right after I stopped out. I've seen a lot of sellers around this pre-market highs area, and I took another starter and I added on the squeeze up to 1020s, and that's because 1020s, $10, this whole area, pre-market high, this rough range, a lot of selling into this area, and every time it tries to spike, we have these kind of wicks here, right? When you get these kind of wicks on the candle, it means the moves, the breakouts are being sold into. So, you know, that's a very basic technical analysis and price action reading. So I shorted here, but again, I could only do that because I stopped out of my initial short. Shorted here, shorted some more on this $10 push. I covered some just to pay myself in case we get another one of those VWAP reclaim move that we saw here. But after seeing that we're really weak when not bouncing, that's why I started scaling in and back to my original short position, and I accumulated a nice little average here about 850s after all these ads, and you know, pretty nice, you know, and essentially I got at the moment the bottom tick around 660s. I had wanted more on the fade, but after seeing that we're reclaiming sevens and now we're grinding higher, I stopped out of all my rest of my short position. But I did cover on the way down. Always have to do this with low float stocks like these. So I'm very proud of the way I cut my initial short entry here. This is something I should have done with AYRO yesterday. So I definitely learned my lesson, right? It was like what, over a little bit over $1,000 lesson on that yesterday. You know, gave back a chunk of my profit from the day. So today I'm very happy I took the paper cut, and it's only after you take the loss that you have the clear mental capacity and the clarity in your head to think, you know, with an open mind to re-enter the stock short again. So that's something I'm very happy about. And ANVS was my biggest trade on the day. The other stock that added up really nicely actually is Tesla. So Tesla, you know, initially it was just a scalp, right? Just scalp. I essentially trying to risk the previous day close around $1,380 and, you know, sold into the push into 1400s. I missed this entire move. I wasn't short Tesla, and after it starts, you know, reclaiming this red to green move is where I, you know, putting another starter size. I was thinking that, you know, if we continue holding this area, we're gonna get this kind of squeeze. And because it is a starter size, that's why I was okay with having a wider stop. If we did close beneath this 1360s area, that's where I would stop out on my original short, my original starter long entry. And no, Tesla is one of those stocks that loves to reclaim VWAP, and if it does hold this VWAP, it's gonna squeeze. Time and again, if you look at the past charts on the breakout days, that's what it almost always does. You know, it's almost always, it's not 100% guaranteed, but I had seen it enough times for me to go long again. Is why I added to a pretty decent size, half size. You know, with a stock like Tesla, I don't want to size in too big. It is at $1,400 stock after all, so you know, pretty decent size. Sold into the first target around 1400, and this is where I got greedy and I didn't sell into 1420s, which was my second price target. You know, and that's another 20-point move from 1400 all the way to 1420s. I didn't sell because I was just being a greedy little bit, and so that did cost me, you know, some money, and I did eventually, I was, holding here thinking that, okay, I missed the sell. I want to see if we hold 1400 and we make another push. And when we didn't get that, I stopped out. So I did stop out in the money. I still make a pretty decent profit after my average about 1381. I sold the last position around 1398. It's still pretty decent, but I did miss this entire $23 move. The plan was to sell into 1420 and I didn't follow that. So I'm human after all. I do get greedy sometimes. So definitely something to learn through all your winners and losers. But I'm glad I still, follow the second plan, which is to stop out if we cannot hold 1400. So I am happy about that. Last trade on the day is NVAX. So NVAX, I was actually extremely bullish on the stock. It's a stock I made money on both short and long before, but seeing this gap up, I thought, once, if we can hold this 105, 104 area, we're gonna push higher, and we might see pre-market highs and potentially 120s. I did have a starter. The price action on the stock wasn't exactly clean like the past breakouts I traded on this day and this day, I believe. So that's why, I didn't have much size on this entry. And you can see, once, we start wicking around this breakout area around 110s, that's why I took, my position off. Even if it's starter size, I didn't want to let it turn into a loser, because I think we're going to retrace lower to this 104, 103s area, which we did. And I tried to long again, didn't work. And that's why I stopped out of my second long. So I did take a loss on the long trade. And after seeing that was extremely heavy and breaking down the support area, that's why I was flipped short and ended up paying nicely on the short side. Flipped short here and added some more after confirmed breakout and volume coming in, and covered some into the flush, re-added into this 100 bounce, and covered some into the downside flush around 97, 90s. I missed this flush to 95s. I was waiting around 94. I thought we would, test that area before, reversal and going higher like it's doing now, but, missed the cover. I did try to, add some back in anticipation of the $94 breakdown. Didn't get that. So, once I see this wick getting bought back up, that's usually a pretty good sign that it's going to reverse. So that's why I stopped out of the rest of my position in the money. So pretty decent trade on the short side. So took the loss on the long side, but made it back and more on the short side. So today is definitely the day where it kind of starting to feel like the regular summer that we had in the last few years, where all the runners kind of gap up pre-market and just sell off at the open without any major bounce, like the stock DSS, right? So, and it was all kind of like this yesterday. NNVC, I didn't record it yesterday just because there wasn't that clean of a trade for me. NNVC, I had just a tiny winner on the short. NNVC also, same chart as DSS pretty much. You can see, we gapped up, a PR pump or whatever, and if you look at the daily chart on NNVC, it's being, spikes, fail. So there's a lot of bag holders above $11 on NNVC. So when the stock finally gapped up to finally $10 from single digits for so long, you would expect all the bag holders to want to get out on the stock. And that's why NNVC barely had any bounce. And I had a short on it, but it was so tiny, it wasn't really worth doing the recap about. So, very similar charts as DSS today, except for this one. Since the stock is a micro float, I think it was about 2 million shares float. I actually thought we'll get one final push to $12, right? Because $12, you can see there's resistance here, and then even $13.60. So that was my wishful thinking. So I had to start it long here on the first major pullback, 11.18s. These are misprints. The stock never went up to $12, by the way, and it was just so weak. all the bounces, all these wicks are just being sold into, and that's why I got out of a small loss on the long side and actually flipped short. I don't really like shorting pre-market. I prefer to wait for the open, but when I do, it's just pre-market size, same thing as over here, right? And I had a small short on from 1070s, covered some, but the goal is to short on any pops. If we get a 1080s test at the open, that's where I want to short with bigger short size. But unfortunately, we never got that because you can see the bounces are just so weak. We had about a 980s touch, not even 977, and it was just extremely weak. And I thought to myself, oh my god, it's not gonna pop to 1080. It's gonna do the exact same thing as NNVC yesterday. So that's where I got in short. I was ready to cut if we reclaim $10 and then re-short higher, but unfortunately we never got above $10, and it just kind of tanked. So I'm pretty happy with the way I added, and I was actually really patient. As you can see, I had a short here, covered some small, but re-shorted again after seeing that was so heavy, and we're breaking down this $9 level. This line breaks. It's a final line in the sand, right? So $9 breaks down. We have a gap fill all the way down to possibly 760. So I shorted, and that was my last entry, and I just held it. I'm actually kind of proud about my patience on this one. I held it, covered some, and the idea is that I want to see this support crack for at 780. I want to see even lower to 760s perhaps, but we just kind of started grinding up, and by this time it's around midnight here in Taiwan. I don't like holding any position for too long. I'm on vacation. I just want to close it out and be done with it. The second stock I also traded with a lot smaller size is CLSK because I was focused on DSS. I had a few shorts, really tight range on this one. I completely missed the squeeze here. Had most of the shorts here covered into this. I re-shorted some. I was being patient with DSS, and I didn't really add into this, but later failed $4 and then came back down. So I did have a few long trades on DSS and also NKLA. Both the long trades didn't work. You can see I took a loss on this. I was thinking that we're holding this gap up, we have a potential to test the daily highs, but the SPY was extremely heavy, and we're just selling off. So it was just so weak. I couldn't even hold VWAP. And you can see I had 2 entries. I trimmed some size just to, make sure I protect my downside. But when we cannot hold $59 and then cracking down VWAP, that's when I decided, I need to get out. So that's what I did. So took a loss on the long trade on NKLA. The only long trade was a scalp, and it worked out. But you can see I left a lot on the table was Roku. So Roku, if you look at the daily chart, we're breaking out on the daily. I think it's probably gonna run into earnings. There's upside to 160s on the chart, but so I took a long here below this VWAP dip with an average. After 2 entries, I had an average about 140 60s, something like that, and I sold into 140, 160, and 142. When the SPY is dumping really hard, the bounces are just scalp longs for me. You can say, oh, I left a lot on the table, the stock went to 150, but I don't have a crystal ball, right? At the time, everything was so heavy and everything's really red. I don't want to outstay my welcome and turn this into a loser. This could have just as easily sell off the entire gap down to 136. We've seen the big caps do that. So, I'm happy with the trade, the scalp on this long trade. And in a market where everything's red, most of the stocks that's been working were the short trades, and this was the only long that kind of worked out for me. So to be honest, I wasn't expecting too much out of this Friday, just because the past 2 days has been kind of slow in terms of small caps. So today I kind of want to focus on large cap longs and short the small caps, and ending the day nicely green, but of course it's not without a few stupid mistakes on my part. I'm human after all, it happens, right? So the first stock on the day was WIMI. I had a a lot of hope for the stock to go parabolic to touch 10s and pull back. And it's a low float stock, and it's a recent IPO. You can see we don't have much chart history above $6, and it's also, you know, 6 million shares float. You know, I did expect some more squeeze move, but right at the open just kind of dumped, and it was extremely heavy. It was, you can see I waited a few 2-minute candles until really going into short, because I want to see if we're gonna hold this $8, right? We tried to hold it here, and I was thinking, okay, this could potentially be a long. When we didn't get that, and we flushed down and stayed heavy, that's why I go in short. So, you know, I feel like I'm chasing here, so I want to still slowly scale into my short, cover some just to pay myself, and then, you know, added some more on the pop, and covered most into here. You know, we're still heavy around here, and that's why I want to scale back in and scale back in here and around the VWAP. I was thinking we're gonna reject, and we did for a second here, but when we start holding the 710s, low 7s area, that's where I think, okay, they could try to squeeze it up, and this is why I covered most of it here. I did try the re-add into the hold, very small though, and that's why, you know, because of the small size, that's what gave me the clarity to cover the shorts here. So I did take a loser on the shorts on the re-entries here, which is okay. You have to respect your stop, right? This could have just kept on squeezing to $9 and $10, and there's no way I'm gonna keep on holding through that. It's much easier to exit the trade and think with a clear head whether to go long or short than to keep on adding on the way up to a loser. You don't ever want to do that. That's a big no-no. You might get bailed out once or twice, but the one time where you don't get bailed out, you're gonna blow up. I'm saying that because it's happened to me before, so I know I rather just take the loser and miss this downside. You can see the stock later slam down, but I just have to protect my downside. I did re-hit it small on the short side, cover some for, like, you know, small base hit, and this is why I made the mistake. I was trying to cover all of it just because we kept on holding 7s, and, you know, you can see technically $7 is a support area from pre-market. We kept on holding, and that's why, you know, I much rather, you know, exit the entire position to avoid this kind of action and re-enter higher than to keep on holding and hoping that's gonna drop. But when I covered, I accidentally longed 2,000 shares. So, you know, I still make mistakes, and I turned around, I saw that I was long the stock, and I was thinking, oh my god, why am I long the stock? You know, when that happens, I accidentally enter a trade. My rule is to just get out. So I did take the loser on the long trade by accident. I think that cost me about $800, but it's okay. It's more important to me that I follow the rule on the stock like this. So took a loss on the long trade by accident, and the short trade overall made some decent profit. The second trade on the day is also on the short side. This was a pump pre-market, and it's a stock that I've traded time and again, so I'm pretty confident about this pump that, you know, eventually reality is gonna hit, we're gonna drop. You can see on the daily chart, you know, lots of bag holders above the $8 area, so that's why I was more short biased. I started a starter, added some more, but I want to add to bigger size on any pops. So when it popped to $9, I added, covered some just to pay myself, but that gave me the conviction, because I scaled in slowly, right? That gave me a conviction to continue holding it, and that gave me a really nice, I think it was 840s average, and I covered most of it here around 740s, and I did try to re-hit it a couple more times here, cover some into here, you know, not much here, only 20 cents, and I was all out of the shorts here because, you know, the volume is kind of dropping, and it's also Friday, so I don't want to outstay my welcome. So my second long on the day was Roku, and this one, wow, it's probably going to 160 and 163 now. But I longed the stock. You know, yesterday I played the stock long for a scalp, but today I wanted a trend following move, right? You know, Roku is a momentum stock. It's a stock I've traded time and again. When there's momentum, when there's trending, it loves to push. It's a train essentially. You don't want to get in front of this train, right? So I longed the first pullback. I didn't want to chase the breakouts here. You can see, you know, we had a slight gap down pre-market, but we really quickly reclaimed previous day's close. So, you know, I longed the first dip to VWAP here. First entry 151.80s. That's where I got my starter. I do want to add into my full size. At the time, SPY was kind of heavy, so I kind of want to give a little bit more time to prove to me that it does want to continue trending up. And it did have a push above high, so that's a good sign. And on this pullback is what I added to, I still didn't get full size just because, you know, the SPY was kind of making me nervous, but I did get a decent, you know, 3/4 size on Roku. So I'm very happy about my entries and my patience. And you know, I did write it after this ad. I had an average about 153.40s after this ad here, and I sold the first partial into 156.50s. So that's a pretty decent 2-point move. I wanted this 160 touch for my final sell, but you know, when we kind of start doing this kind of candle, that's where I thought, no, we could see a reversal. So I want to lock it in, and I was out after I got stopped out here. But you can see the stock, you know, really strong. It's probably gonna keep on grinding up to 160, 163s on the daily. So I love these large cap stocks in the summer, especially right now, where, you know, a lot of these small caps are just kind of grinding and chopping around. I prefer to short the small cap gap ups and long the large caps. That's what historically have proven to be more consistent in the summer months. For me, at least, the last year and the year before has been like this. So I'm just doing what works for me, and a long on Roku works really well, right? This is essentially like what, a 7-point move to the upside. So, you know, this is what I used personally to build my small accounts when I was, you know, trading the first few years. It's trading these large caps. The small caps are a little bit just too unpredictable. The large caps respect the support and resistance so much better if you're patient. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and the bad jokes. If you want to see more day trading content, make sure to subscribe and follow me on Twitter and Instagram for more. If you'd like to trade with me daily and get my free weekend watch list and trading journal, make sure to check out the links below for more resources. Stay green, stay positive, and I'll see you guys next time.